Welcome to Veritas Populi. I'm Dan Meredith, your host and producer of the show. Tonight we have a special guest with us, Judd Matheny. Judd is a state representative for the state of Tennessee. He is a representative for District 47. Now I always get the district messed up, so I have to read. He is the district representative for most or parts of Coffee and Warren County.
Yes, sir. All of Coffee and part of Warren.
Okay.
And Tullahoma, Manchester, and McMinnville are my major cities I represent.
Okay. Now you've got a history. You've not always been a representative.
No,
you
sir.
were just a regular guy one day.
Yeah, it feels like it
one
though.
time.
I've been fortunate enough to be reelected 7 times.
Okay.
By my
great.
constituents. I'm in my 15th year, but before that I was in law enforcement.
Okay.
And also had a military span with the National Guard for 8 years that overlapped that. I was a police officer for 9 years in the Upper Cumberland, and then also in that time I spent about 3.5 years in the music business and did a lot of events for Senator Fred Thompson, and built about 40 major concerts and did 300 or 400 smaller ones. Also had an executive protection company, and I did all the security for Adelphia Coliseum and Gaylord Entertainment Center at the time, and which was the Titans game and the Predators game, and I was head of security for all of those.
Okay.
And had a wonderful background. I'm fortunate to have it, and so, but mostly safety and security has been my background.
Okay. So I think one of the things that we can gain from your experience is if people are sitting around thinking, I wish somebody would do something, you did it.
Oh man,
and other people can do it if they want to.
We've been doing it, Dan. We've got, you know, there's so many things. We were talking about the things Trump's talking about before it was cool in the state of Tennessee. I mean, for 10 years we've been screaming for the things Trump is doing. And states' rights has always been really my #1 issue. One of the main reasons I got into politics was because of an oppressive federal government. The assault weapons ban in 1994 got me off my rear end, educated me about politics. I went out and found the people that were running against the people that voted for the assault weapons ban, started working for them, and began to learn my way through politics. And eventually, 6 years later, I decided to run for office and won my first time out against a 10-year incumbent Democrat. I was the first Republican elected in Middle Tennessee in 147 years. Okay. And now there's no Democrats left other than a few in Nashville. We've had a really strong change of the guard. But as I've matured in politics and held several chairmanships with Speaker Pro Tem for 1 term, states' rights has always been my #1 issue, and basically dealing, and also not only federalism issues, but doing what the federal government can't or won't to protect our citizens. That's been especially important over the last 8 years, and we can get into some of those.
Yeah, let's sort of set the table here so our audience will know what our subject, at least part of the show, our subject is going to be, is basically states' rights or the 10th Amendment. If you go to Europe and you go to Germany or France or England, you have, let's say Germany. I don't know a lot about the history of Germany or France, but I know you've got a country that divides itself up into sections, states or counties or whatever. In the United States, it's backwards. We didn't have a United States that divided itself into states.
Excellent way to put it.
We had colonies that were little countries that got together, sort of like, I like to think of it as like the European Union. We were a bunch of countries that said, let's get together and we'll give up a little bit of our sovereignty and we'll unite, but we'll only give up some of it. We're going to give some enumerated powers to this federal government. People don't realize that today. They think that the federal government is this big nation and the states are these subdivisions. But we forget the states made the federal government.
Yes, sir. We've lost our way.
Gave them these things.
We've lost our respect in that way, and it's quite precarious. Folks need to know in the state of Tennessee, about 60% of our state budget is direct and indirectly dependent on federal money. That's how dependent the state of Tennessee is on the federal government. And it should be the exact opposite way around. The federal government should be dependent on us to survive.
The founders never intended this.
They never intended it, and it's a very dangerous situation we're in politically right now. And I'm confident we have a president that realizes these things, and he's trying to, he's shocking a lot of people with what he's saying and what he's doing. But these are necessary things to be done. What he has to do is put his people in place to make things happen, and to give the states more power.
Right. And this recent issue with the bathrooms.
Yes.
He said, now you and I would probably agree that on the bathrooms issues. We'd say, you know, we don't want boys in girls' bathrooms, girls in boys' bathrooms.
Amen.
But the point that he's making is the federal government doesn't make that.
Has no right to be in that type of
If
decision
you've
making.
got some goofy state out west that wants to have
Move
people
out there.
If you want to live in a weird place, live in a weird place.
Yes, sir.
But Tennessee's probably not going to do that.
And also, same-sex marriage is another issue.
Right.
You know, it's just an overstepping of federal bounds. And another issue I've been very active in is refugee resettlement.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that the federal government is overstepping its bounds in the way it places refugees into our individual states without the state's consent whatsoever. I believe the state, and I have led along with Terry Lynn Weaver, I started hearings in 2013 that eventually led to the lawsuit that we're filing against the federal government in conjunction with the Thomas More Law Center on refugee resettlement that just basically says, look, it's a violation of the 10th Amendment, what you're doing, to bring refugees into this state without the state's consent in any way, without consulting us on our ability to provide for them or to care for them, or the employment rates or the health characteristics of those individuals. We believe it's a violation of our sovereign rights.
And there needs to be more state officials that understand the idea of state sovereignty. I describe it this way. It's like, I think you live out in the country, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there are a lot of people that live in an HOA.
Mm-hmm.
You live in an HOA, you go to your HOA meeting and they tell you what kind of mailbox you can have. You grant your HOA certain powers. If you live here, they can tell you what color you can paint your house. Or just imagine if you live in an HOA and some guy comes knocking on your door and he comes in and he crawls in bed with you and your wife. And you say, well, wait a minute. That's not part of what you do. And he says, well, yeah, I'm the president of the HOA. No, I did not give you that power. Well, yeah, I'm taking it. That's what the federal government's done. The states have enumerated powers. And let's put up the 10th Amendment on our display. The 10th Amendment of the Constitution says that those powers not enumerated to the federal government. That's what these colonies said. We're going to
right, specifically laid out.
Right. We're going to make here it is. We're going to make
defense being the number one, common defense being
right.
the main
there are certain
issue.
Things
right.
We're going to say enumerated powers for the federal government, just like your HOA. And anything else that we didn't enumerate to the federal government, they have no business doing. So when the federal government comes in and says, you know, we really think you all aren't doing a good job with education, we might not be. Mm-hmm. It's none of your business. Just right. Like if the HOA guy doesn't like the way I'm raising my family, I might not be, but it's none of his business. He doesn't have a right to do this. And right. The federal government continually says to us, I don't like the way you run your schools. I don't like the way you do your highways. I don't like the way you do. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to change things because, after all, I'm smarter than you.
And they use the control of money to do it,
Mm-hmm.
or the lure of money. And too many times in the past 150 years, we have succumbed to that as a state. And very slowly, and it's accelerated massively over the last 70 years and exponentially over the last 20 years. How much money we receive from the federal government and how much loss of power. As a state legislature, 220 years ago, I was the most powerful thing in the state.
Yeah.
And now I'm relegated to almost a pass-through for federal rules and regulations, almost a stamp-off. And so we've been trying for about 10 years to consciously reverse that in the state and to educate our peers about it in the legislature and to educate our citizens about it. And
how many would you say in the legislature actually understand this whole concept of the power that the state should have as a
truly understand it? There's a difference between understanding it and exercising it. Everybody, if you asked them, they would probably say, "Oh, I know, I get it." You know.
I remember Bob Dole walking around with the Constitution in his pocket, and I'm thinking, "Well,
you need to read it again, Bob."
Yeah.
And but practicing constitutional conservatives, I'm going to say it's about a third of the House, which is 33 members.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit less, and in the Senate, it's probably about a third also,
okay.
and which would be about 12 members,
okay.
8 to 12 members. And it's not enough to get done what we need to get done, but it's enough to stop the most ostentatious things that the federal government does.
Used to.
Well, we stopped Common Core.
Okay.
And 4 other House members stopped Common Core. We stopped Medicaid expansion, and we really we want to care for Tennesseans, but what we say is we want the money to do it, but we want control of the money. We want to spend it the way we want to do it.
Well, the whole idea to begin with is they tax people so much, and they take it to the federal government, and then they say, if you do this, here's a little money. Yep. And it's
or
our
if you
money,
don't do this, we're going to take it away.
Or we'll take
and
it away.
A prime example that just came up last year, and we had to have a special session over it in September, was $60 million in highway funds. We actually passed a more restrictive DUI law than the federal government's, but because it didn't completely sync up with their law, they actually threatened to pull $60 million from us. This year, they're threatening to pull $18 million from us in highway funding if we don't pass the bottle bill, which is basically where a passenger in the vehicle can't have an open container of alcohol. You know, and many of us are ready to say, you know what, the heck with that money.
Yeah.
We're not going to get into the passenger seat and the back seat of a vehicle. As long as the driver's not intoxicated, and it's more than just that issue. It's a whole host of issues. It's just the tip of the iceberg now. It's the straw that broke the camel's back. And I think you're seeing enough pushback now that from an education standpoint and from an actual legislative standpoint that we've put forward, that Tennessee's ahead of the curve of most states in its awareness of its states' rights. Now we have a president that's going to hopefully enable us to roll the scale back a little bit. And we've gotten here, Dan, as I explained, in 70 to 30 to 20 years, faster and faster. It's going to take some time to roll it back. We have to slowly and predictably wean ourselves off the federal government, and we have to do it where we don't destroy our budgets and we don't destroy our way of life. And so we hope we have a president that's going to be committed to that, the long term of doing that. And we hope the next governor that we elect is going to work in conjunction with the president and enable the legislature to be able to head that direction.
Yeah, hope so. We have a slide that we put up about that says interpose, the interposition. The concept of interposition is one of the duties of state legislators, governors, state officials, is to interpose yourself. Because we the people, we're just walking around here doing our thing in life. Then you've got a federal government out there. And one of the duties of people like you and the governor and the senators is to interpose yourself between the federal government, because they can do harm to we the people.
And they will. It's the nature of things for the government to get out of control and grow too big. And you're exactly right. We're the buffer. It is up to us when the federal government won't or can't do something for us to do it. And we've seen it in Homeland Security issues. We've seen it in our ability to map our own educational standards. Now we've gotten away from Common Core and we're going to a Tennessee-based model.
And there are more and more states that are saying to the federal government, no, you leave our people
absolutely
alone.
We love the country.
We're going to stop.
And, I don't want to say I coined the phrase, but I'm the only one that I know that uses it, and I use it on much of my campaign issues and many of my speeches, and that's the slogan, Tennessee first, America always. Because our job is to take care of ourselves in concentric circles outward.
Right.
And we will never turn our back on our mother country, America. But we have to always cast an eye towards the center, the people that brought us here, the people that elected us to this republic to run the government, and as you said, perform the task of interposition.
Yeah. I heard someone back in, I guess it was the War Between the States period, where someone talked about the fact that it's your family first, your neighborhood. You know, if there's a war, if there's a battle between my neighborhood and the one next door, I'm going to be with my folks.
Absolutely.
And if there's something happen between Kentucky and Tennessee, I'm going to stand with Tennessee. If it's between the North and the South, I'm with the Southerners. And if it's between the people in the Middle East and the United States,
and you just nailed something, Dan. The folks there's individuals in this community that don't believe that, and that they're not America first.
Yeah.
And so it's very important that the individuals that we do bring over as refugees, or that we do allow in as immigrants, that they assimilate to America.
Oh yeah.
That they don't.
People are saying now we're all immigrants. Well, my people came from somewhere 200 years ago, but you don't see me waving a Welsh flag or a
French flag
Irish
or German flag. Yes,
no, because we have assimilated.
You must assimilate, and you have to do it in a timely manner too. It's not, you can't, and it's a very important fact you brought up.
Yeah, big difference from people that come here and say they're going to try to harm us. We did a show recently about the Second Amendment, and Mark Green was here, and he talked about the fact that there are people that are even Americans, born and raised Americans, that are here and want to harm people, and we just can't allow that to happen.
Right.
I mean, that didn't happen 200 years ago. There were crazy people, but there weren't people that were in America that were against America.
Their philosophy was against their home country,
Right.
and a lot of that is because of the neighborhoods that have failed to assimilate that raise them,
Right.
and the fact that we're continuing to bring those individuals over, and I love Mark Green to death. He's spot on.
Yeah.
Sure.
What else is going on down. You just came. I mean, we're taping here.
Just
at,
came
9
from the
o'clock.
Capitol. Yes, sir.
You came
We had
down there ruining people's lives with the rest of the folks, but you're trying to keep that from happening.
Well, we actually
So
had our
what's going
first
on?
real bills on the House floor tonight, real ones. We've done some
Okay.
appointments and some things, but we actually had some real legislation tonight, and then we had a couple of constituent groups that were up, and then I had to run over here, and you were nice enough to accommodate the late hour of this broadcast, or this taping.
Just glad
so
to have you here.
Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
proud to be here. But probably the number one thing that's eclipsing all other issues is the gas tax and what's going to happen surrounding the gas tax in Tennessee. And there's a really sordid history about why we need an increase in the gas tax that most of my peers don't fully understand. I've been here 15 years. I was in the legislature when TennCare was fully manifesting itself as a budget buster. It was eclipsing education, it was eclipsing all other areas of the budget and spending, and Governor Bredesen in particular had to rein it in. And but between Sundquist's administration and Bredesen's administration, I'm talking about gas tax here actually, the transportation fund was rated to the tune of about $220 million a year. So over $1 billion in transportation funding was stripped away. It's reserve funding, it's operational funding. So Medicaid expansion, which was TennCare, actually put us in the situation where we are now, where our roads are in need of repair. They're not degraded to the point where they're substandard yet, but in order to keep them excellent at all times and remain the best transportation infrastructure state in the country, we have to have a plan moving forward to be able to fund existing and new projects and maintenance. We went from a construction state to a maintenance state over Medicaid expansion. And this same governor 2 years ago tried to expand Medicaid, which would have once again eventually hollowed out our transportation budget, had no things other change, or other budgets. It's not just transportation that was hollowed out, it was every state department and every state issue. The refugee resettlement program that we just mentioned, Medicaid expansion, we lost our authority over the refugee resettlement program to save $338,000 to throw in the black TennCare hole. So we lost our control as a state over refugee resettlement. We farmed it out to a third-party agency. So to expand Medicaid again would have been irresponsible, and here we are asking for a gas tax to remedy Medicaid expansion faults from a decade ago. And we're doing it in a time when we have unprecedented budget surpluses. And with all due respect, it's a governor that, whether it's true or not, and we've heard conflicting reports, could potentially benefit from the gas tax. Now, I can't say he will.
Right.
Absolutely not. And the governor's a good man. I'm not saying he's a good man. He's running the state excellently, most excellent as a financial governor. But socially, we have some serious problems with him, and strategically, and where he's going to leave this state when he rides out of town, we're really concerned about that.
Yeah.
So, growing government at a rapid pace. We have huge surpluses. This year, we have almost a $2 billion surplus on top of healthy reserves already within the state. That $2 billion is basically one half of it, almost $1 billion, is recurring money, which means we can count on it again next year. The other half is one-time money, and that's great money for colleges and universities for one-time infrastructure development money and to do selected road projects. But that recurring money is extraordinarily high. To have $1 billion of recurring revenue a new revenue is extraordinary.
So we've got a surplus of money that has come in.
Big time, yes, sir.
A lot of money. I remember it's just been like 5 or 6 years ago. It was like, Tennessee's broke. We need more money.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we've got a lot of money. And it seems to me like a lot of time politicians, once you get money, it's like, now we got to go spend it.
Well, and here is, if we grow government at the rate of $1 billion a year in new spending, and we drag down $600 million in new federal money, then that's $1.6 billion budget growth we have. Well, when we do have the recession that you just mentioned that was here some years ago, when we eventually have it again, it's going to be that much more crippling. So we have to control our growth so our losses aren't so devastating. If our growth goes here and our losses go here, even if our losses stay here and our growth continues to go here, the gap's going to be much larger. So we can't grow government at $1 billion a year, especially we can't ask for a new tax on top of that, which is a gas tax, which will benefit roughly $280 to $300 million a year. The governor's plan, I can almost confidently say here, is not going to happen. We're not going to pass a gas tax.
So you're pretty sure that that's not going to fly?
I can't see this General Assembly doing it. From a financial standpoint, it's very irresponsible to the taxpayer because we overcollected $339 from every man, woman, and child last fiscal year.
I wondered where that went.
Yes,
I
sir.
was looking for that.
Well, not only that, next fiscal year, we already collected, and we're recording this on February 27th of 2017. Well, January of 2017, we overcollected just for the month $169 million over projected revenues. So January is normally a bumper month due to fourth quarter payments from businesses, which are often one time, but still we're well over $100 million a month in new revenue. You project that out even for 8 or 9 months, we're back where we are today. So you're looking at 2 years in a row of unprecedented growth, probably 3 to 4 with the new president coming in. The honeymoon phase is not going to end.
That's what I was wondering. With Trump coming in, there's a lot of businesses making money.
Oh, there's so many businesses.
So do you think that's going to
Dan, there were so many businesses. There were so many businesses just hovering around Tennessee, ready to start digging earth. Right after the federal election, boom, they started digging. And I mean, we're not even seeing that bump yet.
So those people that are sort of anti-Trump and
they're a clear minority.
Yeah, anti-conservative.
They're a clear minority.
Yeah, you look now and you see these kind of things end up resulting in good for everyone.
78 to 80%
businesses start making more businesses.
Amen. And so what we have to do is we have to take all that growth and we have to use it where it's best to be used. And when we're talking about budgets, budgets should reflect priorities. Transportation should be, and I think is a priority in Tennessee. Our geographic location and our transportation infrastructure that we have in place now are the reason these budget surpluses were created. It's not because we have some genius in a lab that knew how to create this extra money. It is the transportation infrastructure. It's the manufacturing and the shipping and the logistic industry that we have here in Middle Tennessee. We're all over Tennessee, actually. So why not take the budget surpluses that were created almost, not entirely, but in great part due to these factors, the factor that we're the perfect state for transportation and manufacturing and logistics, put those back into the person that brought you to the dance. Take your reserves, or take your new money that's recurring and put that into your transportation projects. Don't ask, on top of a record budget surplus year, your taxpayers to give you even more money. And especially don't do it when you have a cloudy conflict of interest related to it. It's the worst possible political move I could possibly imagine for a governor with these surpluses and these potential conflicts of interest to ask for this type of gas tax. That's why I'm telling you at the end of the day, I'm confident this legislature is not going to pass it. However, I will tell you, down to the last man and woman in the General Assembly, all 132 of us, 99 reps and 33 senators, we're all in favor of funding transportation projects. We're all in favor of shoring up our infrastructure, but we want to do it with the recurring funds that we know are coming in. Instead of creating new programs for government and growing government, we want to plow that money back into the reason that we're getting these surpluses. And that means an immediate tax break for our individuals. It's less money that the citizen has to pay in extra money in order to get these same things done. So that's the financial reason that a gas tax is probably not going to pass, and it's a really bad idea. The political reason is pure suicide. If you're a politician and you vote for the gas tax, you're done. You're dead meat.
You think so?
Yes, sir. It's the income tax vote of this generation.
I've heard so many people, I've seen online where people are advocating and saying, well, we need it for roads, we need it for bridges, those kind of things.
It's the clear minority.
It's
the clear minority. It's the path of least resistance. That's why we got to where we are, is because too many people in politics have taken the path of least resistance. It's take the federal money, do the tax increase, don't grind down, don't fire people, don't lay off people, don't do what absolutely has to be done in order to trim it up. You can't say run government like a business. That's kind of cliche. It's cool to say that, but government is different than a business. But you have to have some business principles in government. You have to have some common sense economic principles. And you just don't over milk the cow that gave you all this milk.
What if the argument that the gas tax is going to go up and the tax on food is going to go down and it's going to be a wash?
Infinitesimal. It's not a wash. The reducing sales tax on food by just a little bit is only a temporary fix. All the governments in this bill would be allowed to have a special option sales tax increase. Every government's going to do that. So even though you're saving half a cent now, the government's going to increase it up to a cent later.
You mean the
local government? So you're actually going to lose on that end. A loaf of bread may cost a nickel less, but a gallon of gas is going to cost 12 or 14 cents more, and you're not going to make any money. Plus, the governor's, right now as we sit today, the governor's tax proposal is indexed for inflation, but the tax cuts are not. So even though your gas tax may go up automatically every year.
So the gas tax is indexed for inflation, so it's going to continue going up.
It's going to continue to go up, but your tax decrease, or your tax decrease is not going to continue to decrease. It's only going to go up with local options. So the bottom line is it's not a new stream of revenue, but it's a reinforcement to an existing stream of revenue that's unnecessary. And it's the worst possible time to do this politically. And it's just a bad move for politicians to do it if they want to stay in office. Now, if you're going out of office, and to me it's important, now if I as Judd Matheny, my constituents elect me for certain default reasons. They know for a fact how I'm going to be on certain issues. We don't even have to discuss it. A gas tax is one of them. They do not expect me to vote for a gas tax. I expect to get beat if I do that because it's not a smart move. Now, if there's a situation where I'm not sure about something or it's outside the realm of the reason why I was really elected for my core conservative beliefs, I go to my constituents and I vote on what I consider to be the best option.
Right.
But when it comes to something like this, it's a done deal in my mind. It should be a done deal in every legislator's mind. It's not the right thing to do. The timing is poor, and we need to come up with a better solution.
Sounds good. We've got about 2 minutes or left. That quick a time, any big issues that you want to present real quickly?
Well, real quick, some things I'm doing. I've got some big, you can call me at my office, 615-741-7448, and I'll be glad to share this with you. But some big issues on that have to do with Medicaid payments. I know it's kind of boring, but working on those. Also, myself and Senator Ketron are passing a resolution that encourages the United States government to overthrow the regime in Iran and to support the president in efforts to do that due to their missile technology and nuclear programs and the threat that they pose to globalization. Now, continue to pass, try to increase our areas where permit holders can carry their weapons, and we'll continue to try to vote for a balanced budget, and look forward to giving you another update maybe later in the session, Dan.
Appreciate it.
All right, my man.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you
This
so
has been
much.
great. Judd Matheny, we appreciate you being here. Got about 30 seconds left, and the 10th Amendment is something that all of us ought to learn more about. All of us ought to realize that the federal government is out of bounds. It's out of its cage. We need to put it back in its cage.
It's a simple rule. It's a simple read, the 10th Amendment, and it should make you mad when you read it.
It should.
It should make you mad.
And legislators ought to know it by heart. And we the people created the federal government, and we the people need to tell the federal government to get back in its cage.
Amen.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Veritas Populi.